It's what I call a live documentary. So it's a documentary film, but there's a live component to it. So I narrate the film in person and I cue the images from a computer as I go. And then there's a band that does a live soundtrack at the same time. So in a lot of ways it is a movie. It's images and sound and narration, but it's all happening live and it changes each time. It's always a little bit different. And so the film is about utopia, and it's about several different stories that are about the idea of utopia in one way or another. So in some ways the form of it comes out of the content. It to me, if you're making films today, you have to accept that a lot of people are going to be watching a film on their computer alone at home while they're checking their email. And a movie about utopia seems like something people should do together. Utopia is almost always about a collective experience, not everybody alone in their rooms at night. So we made this movie where it happens live. People come to see it. It's hopefully fun or meaningful or more special than just, some movie you get on Netflix or something like that. So that's what it is. Yes. I'll be on the stage narrating. And then the band, we have a great band. They're from Brooklyn called the Quavers from New York. And they play live while the movie happens. And it's not even a normal movie where you just hit start and the whole thing plays. It's from a computer, and I press, for each image or each bit of moving images, I advance it. So it really is almost like it's like a piece of jazz or something where things can be longer or shorter. It's always different as it goes. So it really is, it's, in some ways it's a movie, but it also is, you could call it a performance, or even I've called it sometimes a fancy lecture. It's a lecture that is just really fancy. So it's a lot of different things. It's like an odd piece that is in between different genres right now. But because I make films, I've made a lot of films, it's sort of in the film world. So.
Right. And will you be choosing some spectators, or will there be, is going to be something like that? I'm trying to picture the whole thing in my head.
Yeah. It's not like a full-on theatrical experience where, we have audience participation, although we're open to that. And once we did a show a little while ago and somebody asked a question right in the middle of the piece. They raised their hand and asked a question, and we kind of stopped and answered it. So we're open to that. If that happens, that's great. But at the same time, it is a movie, and we sort of try to stick to, I don't want to get too far from making a film. It's not a play or anything like that. So
yeah, I mean, there are 4 stories there, and those 4 stories are scripted. I mean, you know what those 4 stories are, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've done the piece a lot, and I know the words to it, but it changes a little bit here and there, and we rewrite it, different parts. We did a show in Minnesota 2 days ago, and so I made a little part about Minnesota in it, because one part of the thing, there's something that takes place in Minnesota, so it's fun. You can kind of personalize it. Although with this show, I don't know what to do exactly. I don't know Turkey well enough to be able to say something specific, but we'll see.
Yeah, okay. Did you come here before?
I've never been there before.
You've never been there.
I'm very excited. Oh, yeah.
Right, great. That concept of utopia, what does it mean to you?
Well, it's a complicated word, and it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of people. I don't think of utopia as a perfect world that somehow we'll achieve where everybody loves each other and we all have good jobs. And, I don't actually, that doesn't interest me that much. What I like about utopia is the idea that it represents being able to imagine something that's radically different and radically better than the present. I think in the world today, at least in the West, we've come to just accept that this is it. You can't dream beyond this, that market capitalism and democracy and a sort of fair society, but a society where a lot of people are falling out the bottom is the most we can hope for. And that to me is a tragedy, because it seems like now more than ever we need an imagination for the future to be able to think of better worlds. Things could be so much better. We have all the tools to make them better. So to me, utopia means hope for the future and the imagination together. And it just seems there's something about the world today that those things have withered, or we have less of that today. And I made this piece to try to, in a poetic way, explore why that's true, and also maybe to spark a little bit of creativity and hope for the future. So that's utopia for me.
Your four stories here, do they have that spirit?
One of the pieces is about the language Esperanto.
Right.
And that was this language that a guy in Poland made up in the late 1800s. He hoped that if we all spoke the same language, we could overcome war and racism, and people would get along better. And it's a wonderful idea. And in the 1920s and 30s, a lot of people actually thought that this could work. And, there's a worldwide movement of people who speak it. It obviously didn't work, but there's still people who speak it a lot more than I thought. And so I like that story because it's about hope, and having hope at a difficult time, having hope in a situation that doesn't seem that hopeful. These people somehow carry on, and there's something lovely about it, and they're all very sweet people and international, and so that's one of the pieces. Another is about the idea of revolution, and because that was a great utopian project of the 20th century, the revolution. And so it's about an American woman who lives in Cuba and is still a revolutionary. And, the idea of revolution still, we live in the shadow of that huge project of making the world better through revolution and science. And the third part is about the world's largest shopping mall, which is in China, and that's sort of the capitalist idea of revolution or of utopia.
Right.
So,
okay, and the fourth?
The fourth is a complicated part. It's about a time capsule that was buried at the World's Fair in New York in 1939, and it was supposed to be dug up. It's supposed to be dug up in 5,000 years. So it's this very hopeful thing. People thought the world is going to be great. And so this is sort of just an essay about that in the 20th century and how that kind of still has an effect on us. We live in the shadow of that. So
you're specifically doing documentaries. It seemed to me like, documentary thing progressed quite a bit, and people are questioning or trying to find out how to reach sort of, reality. And now some of them are more fictional and they don't care about this being fictional. It's just like there are lots of dimensions of documentary now. Where it is going towards?
I don't know. It's a really good question. It's hard to know where it's going towards, but I think you're definitely right that documentary is really like opening up. In the past, a documentary was a documentary. You'd have interviews and narration, and now the line between fiction and reality is much blurrier, and the like what we're doing, the line between live performance and documentary is also blurry. And I don't know, I think that the world is changing so fast, and people's experiences are getting more and more complex, and that documentary is sort of opening up to reflect that. An old-fashioned documentary, in some ways, there's a lot of great information maybe, but the form is, it's sort of tired. And so new and exciting forms kind of reflect the fact that the world is odd and changing and complex, and how we know things, how we know if things are true or not is so much more complicated than it's been in the past. So I think it's a great time for documentary, a kind of creative, fertile time with a lot of change. So that's exciting to me.
Yeah, that's exactly because it seems like lots of people I mean, who finds a camera actually can just start making documentaries and share them on like their Facebook or whatever.
Yeah,
For a feature film, you still need a good production. It should be more sleek or whatever.
right.
But for documentary, it seems like you just sort of should find an idea and then you can just
Yeah,
realize it and
yeah. I
seems.
mean, that's definitely changed things a lot. The tools and technology have changed so quickly. I mean, when I first started making films, which is not that long ago, you had to rent a camera and an editing. You know, everything cost so much money. The number of people who could make a film was so much smaller, and also the kinds of films you could make was so much more limited. You had to be able to raise money to make it, and that was true everywhere. And so now it's very easy to do anything. And in some ways, that just means there's way too much shit out there. You know, we're awash with media and images and video, but there's still amazing things that are coming out of that. And new people are able to make films or make, you know, at some point, what is a documentary? It's a good question. If you see something somebody made on YouTube, sometimes, you know, who knows if it's a documentary or not, but it's real. And I think documentary to me is much more about real things and experience of reality than it is about, you know, the form or how long it is or if it's in a called a documentary in a film festival. So